It was an ordinary Thursday morning on the bustling streets of Los Angeles, where the city's heartbeat echoed in the crowded bus. As the doors hissed shut, a wave of warmth and noise washed over the passengers, who settled into their routine journeys. Among them sat Mr. Thompson, an elderly veteran, his weathered hands resting on the strap of his worn military jacket. His eyes, though heavy with years of memories, sparkled with a faint glimmer of hope. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A group of teenagers, loud and boisterous, boarded the bus with an air of arrogance. They quickly spotted Mr. Thompson, and a smirk spread across one boy's face. "Look at that old dude. What's he doing out here? Shouldn't he be in a retirement home or something?" he sneered, laughter echoing among his friends. Mr. Thompson's heart sank. The familiar sting of ridicule resurfaced, evoking memories of the battles he fought, not just on foreign soil, but against the ghosts of his past. He stared out the window, trying to drown out the hurtful words, but they clawed at him like a relentless storm. "Hey, Grandpa, are you gonna cry?" Another teen chimed in, their laughter sharp and piercing. The other passengers shifted uncomfortably, stealing glances but remaining silent, unwilling to confront the bullies. As the tension thickened, a voice in the back of the bus whispered, "Someone should do something." But in a world where kindness often falters, what could one person do against a group? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Little did they know, the bus would soon take a turn that none of them expected, and a hero would emerge from the most unlikely of places. Mr. Thompson sat quietly in his seat, reflecting on a life that had been filled with both valor and sorrow. As a young man, he had enlisted in the army with dreams of serving his country. He remembered the rush of pride as he donned his uniform for the first time, the camaraderie shared with his fellow soldiers, and the sense of purpose that came with each mission. The memories flooded back, the noise of gunfire, the chaos of combat, and the weight of loss. Friends he had fought alongside, some of whom never returned home, lingered in his thoughts. He had come back to a world that felt foreign, grappling with the scars of war and the burden of silence. It wasn't just the physical injuries that haunted him. It was the echoes of laughter and love that had faded away, leaving him in solitude. His closest companion now was his granddaughter, Lily. She was his light in the dark, a vibrant spirit who would visit every weekend. Lily would sit beside him, her curiosity boundless as she asked him questions about his past. "Tell me about the time you saved your friend's grandpa," she would exclaim, her eyes wide with admiration. In those moments, Mr. Thompson felt like a hero again, if only for her. Lily had a way of making him forget the heaviness in his heart. Their bond was a lifeline, reminding him of the love that still existed in the world. But as she grew older, he worried about her future. Would she understand the burdens he carried? Would she be proud of him, even with all his scars? As the bus jolted to a stop, Mr. Thompson's thoughts shifted back to the present. The teenagers continued their taunts, their laughter rising like a wave, crashing against the fragile walls of his memories. It was a reminder of how quickly compassion could evaporate in the face of cruelty. He wished he could show them the man he once was, the soldier who fought for dignity and respect. With each mocking word, he felt himself retreat further into his past, where bravery was a shield against the world's indifference. But he also knew he had to stay strong, for Lily, for himself, and for the countless veterans who felt invisible in a society that had moved on without them. His heart raced as the bus began to move again. The chaos around him intensified, yet there was a flicker of hope. Maybe today would be different. Maybe someone would stand up for him. But as the laughter continued, he felt that flicker dim, lost in the shadows of fear and doubt. Still, he held on to the thought of Lily's smiling face, reminding himself that courage sometimes comes in unexpected forms. If only he could muster the strength to confront his fears, perhaps he could teach those kids something important. With the bus moving forward, Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He didn't know it yet, but the day was about to take a turn that would change everything. As the bus lurched forward, the mocking continued, with the teenagers emboldened by their audience. Mr. Thompson's grip tightened on the strap of his bag, a futile attempt to anchor himself against the tide of ridicule. They threw jabs that cut deeper than any physical wound, a constant reminder of his frailty, both in body and spirit. "Why don't you tell us some war stories, old man? Or is that too much for you?" one of the boys taunted, leaning closer, his friends cackling like hyenas. The bus hummed with tension. Most passengers averted their eyes, pretending to be engrossed in their phones or the scenery outside. Inside, Mr. Thompson felt the weight of the world crashing down on him. He longed to stand up, to speak out against their cruelty. Memories of his military training rushed back, the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. But what could he say? They were just kids, fueled by ignorance and bravado. Suddenly, a voice piped up from the back of the bus. "Hey, leave him alone." A young woman, perhaps in her 20s, spoke up, her voice cutting through the noise like a beacon of hope. The bullies turned to her, surprise evident on their faces. "Who asked you?" one of them sneered. The girl, undeterred, held her ground. "It's called respect. You should try it sometime." For a moment, the atmosphere shifted. Mr. Thompson's heart soared at her courage, even as he remained rooted in his seat. But the bullies, feeling challenged, retaliated. Respect? For what? A washed-up vet who probably has nothing to offer. Mr. Thompson felt a flush of anger mixed with despair. The scene unfolded like a bad movie. He could almost predict the next lines, the pattern of confrontation. Yet here was someone willing to stand against the tide, and for a brief moment, he felt emboldened by her support. But the hope was short-lived. The girl's stand seemed to incite the bullies further. They began hurling insults at her, trying to belittle her for defending an old man. The tension escalated, laughter morphing into jeers, and Mr. Thompson felt himself shrinking further into his seat. In that moment of chaos, Mr. Thompson's mind raced. He wanted to tell the bullies about the sacrifices he made, the friends he lost, the lessons he learned about humanity and respect. Yet the fear of their response paralyzed him. What if he stood up, only to be ridiculed again? What if his voice trembled, betraying his vulnerability? The bus swayed with each bump in the road, mirroring the turmoil inside him. He glanced at the girl, whose defiance sparked something deep within him, a flicker of courage. But before he could gather his thoughts, the bus came to an unexpected stop, and the driver announced, "We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please remain seated while we sort this out." The unexpected halt caught everyone off guard. The teens momentarily paused, glancing around as confusion swept through the bus. Mr. Thompson seized the moment. This was his chance. "Enough!" he finally shouted, his voice breaking through the noise. Every head turned toward him, including the bullies, who looked momentarily startled. "You don't know anything about me, or about what I've been through. You think it's okay to mock someone for their past? I fought for this country, and I deserve respect." The bus fell silent, the air heavy with tension. Mr. Thompson felt a wave of adrenaline rush through him, his heart pounding as he spoke. "You think you're tough because you're in a group? Let me tell you something. True strength lies in lifting others up, not tearing them down." But instead of the reaction he hoped for, he faced a mixture of surprise and derision. The bullies exchanged glances, their confidence shaken but not extinguished. "Oh, look, the old man's got some fight in him," one of them scoffed, but the bravado in their voices wavered. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, feeling both proud and terrified. The moment felt fragile, like a glass teetering on the edge of a table. And then, from the back of the bus, a familiar face entered the scene, someone who would change everything. As Mr. Thompson stood, a sense of determination surged within him, yet he felt vulnerable as the tension crackled in the air. Just then, the doors of the bus swung open, and a figure stepped inside. A familiar face that instantly caught everyone's attention. It was none other than Keanu Reeves, an unexpected sight on this otherwise ordinary commute. The chatter among the passengers shifted to hushed whispers of disbelief. Keanu, with his trademark laid-back demeanor and approachable aura, surveyed the scene. He looked from the bullies to Mr. Thompson, the gravity of the situation evident in his expression. It was as if time slowed for a moment, and every person on the bus held their breath, waiting for the next move. "Hey, everyone," Keanu said, his voice calm yet commanding. "What's going on here?" His gaze settled on the teenagers, who suddenly seemed smaller, their bravado faltering under his scrutiny. "Nothing, just having some fun," one of the boys said, but the way he fidgeted with his hands betrayed his uncertainty. Keanu's presence had shifted the power dynamic, and the bus felt charged with potential. "Fun? Is that what you call it?" Keanu replied, his tone serious. "Because it looks more like bullying to me. You know, there's a big difference between having fun and being cruel." His words hung in the air, challenging the teens to reconsider their actions. Mr. Thompson, standing just a few feet away, felt an unfamiliar surge of hope. Here was a man who had played heroes on screen, now acting as a real-life champion for respect and kindness. Keanu turned to Mr. Thompson, his expression softening. "Sir, are you okay?" For the first time that day, Mr. Thompson found his voice again. "I'm fine. I just wish they understood the impact of their words." He gestured toward the bullies, his heart racing. "This isn't just a game. These things matter." Keanu nodded, understanding the weight behind Mr. Thompson's words. "You're absolutely right. And it takes courage to stand up and say something, just like you did. It's not easy, but it's important." The bullies shifted uncomfortably, glancing at one another. The laughter that had once filled the bus was replaced by a heavy silence. Keanu stepped closer to Mr. Thompson, putting a hand on his shoulder in a gesture of solidarity. "I think it's time to show these kids what true strength looks like." The teenagers exchanged nervous glances, and for a moment, the bravado they had relied on began to crumble. Keanu turned his attention to the others on the bus, his voice warm yet firm. "We're all part of this community, and we need to support each other. Everyone deserves respect, no matter their age or background. Let's lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." Mr. Thompson felt a swell of emotion as he listened to Keanu. The words resonated deeply, filling a void he had felt for years. Here was a man willing to challenge the status quo, to inspire others to reflect on their actions. He had become the voice of a generation, reminding everyone of the fundamental values that unite us. With the atmosphere changing, the teenagers began to retreat, their expressions shifting from arrogance to uncertainty. "We didn't mean it like that," one of the boys mumbled, his bravado fading. "Maybe it's time to think before you speak," Keanu replied gently. "Words can hurt, and you have the power to choose kindness instead. It's never too late to change." The bus remained silent, the weight of his message sinking in. Mr. Thompson felt a warmth spreading through him, a newfound sense of empowerment. It wasn't just about standing up to the bullies. It was about standing tall for all those who felt voiceless. As the bus driver finally got the technical issue sorted and the engine roared back to life, Keanu turned to Mr. Thompson. "Would you like to share a bit about your story? I think everyone here could learn something from your experience." Mr. Thompson's heart raced. Here was a chance to speak out, not just for himself but for all veterans. He nodded, his voice steady as he began to share his story, about the brotherhood formed in the face of danger, the sacrifices made, and the importance of respecting every person's journey. As he spoke, the passengers listened intently, captivated by the wisdom and bravery of the man who had once felt so small. The bus, once filled with laughter at his expense, now resonated with understanding and compassion. This was not just a moment of conflict but a turning point, a collective realization that kindness could transform lives. The bus rolled forward, and as Mr. Thompson shared his truth, a new sense of community began to blossom within those walls. As Mr. Thompson spoke, his voice grew stronger, fueled by the supportive energy radiating from Keanu and the other passengers. He shared stories of camaraderie with his fellow soldiers, the bonds they formed in the face of adversity, and the love they had for their country. With each word, the atmosphere shifted, transforming the bus into a space of reflection and respect. "War is a difficult thing," he said, his eyes glistening with emotion. "It changes you, but it also teaches you about sacrifice and loyalty. I lost friends, real friends. They never made it home, and I carry their memories with me every day. but I also carry the lessons they taught me about compassion and kindness. The bus was silent, every passenger hanging onto his words. Keanu nodded, encouraging Mr. Thompson to continue. You see, every person has a story. We all have struggles. The thing is, it's easy to forget that when we're caught up in our own lives, or when we feel the need to put someone else down to lift ourselves up. At that moment, something shifted within the group of teenagers. The arrogance that had previously characterized their behavior was replaced by introspection. One boy shifted uncomfortably, and for the first time, his gaze met Mr. Thompson's. I didn't mean to. I just thought it was funny, he muttered, his bravado fading. I didn't know you went through all that. Mr. Thompson felt a surge of hope. That's the thing. We often don't know. We see the surface, but everyone has their battles. You can choose to bring people down, or you can lift them up. I chose to fight for my country, but now I fight for respect, for understanding. As he finished speaking, Keanu took a step forward, addressing the teens directly. You guys have the chance to make a difference right now. Why not turn this into a lesson? Use your voices to support others instead of tearing them down. Be the kind of people who stand up for what's right. The bus driver, having listened intently, chimed in, It's true. Each of you can be a role model for others. You don't have to follow the crowd. The real challenge is to be brave enough to be kind in a world that often isn't. The teens shifted again, the reality of their actions settling in. The girl who had initially spoken up now smiled at Mr. Thompson. You're right. I wish I had known your story sooner. It's never too late to change how we treat people. The atmosphere, once filled with hostility, was now charged with empathy. Mr. Thompson could hardly believe the transformation happening before him. For the first time, he felt a sense of connection, not just to Lily or fellow veterans, but to these young people who had once made him feel small. As the bus rolled to a stop, the driver announced they had reached their destination, but no one seemed eager to leave. The teenagers looked at each other, the weight of the moment heavy on their shoulders. They were no longer just a group of kids. They were individuals reflecting on their choices, contemplating how they wanted to move forward. Keanu smiled warmly at Mr. Thompson. You've inspired them today. Thank you for sharing your story. It takes courage to open up like that. Mr. Thompson, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude, replied, Thank you for stepping in. I don't know if I could have said all that without your support. As the passengers began to gather their belongings, one of the bullies approached Mr. Thompson hesitantly. I'm really sorry for what I said. I didn't know. I promise I'll do better. His sincerity was evident, and Mr. Thompson nodded, accepting the apology with grace. Lily had been quietly observing from her seat, her heart swelling with pride for her grandfather. As the bus emptied, she rushed over, throwing her arms around him. You were amazing, Grandpa. I'm so proud of you. With tears in his eyes, Mr. Thompson hugged her back tightly. Thank you, sweetheart. I couldn't have done it without you or everyone else here today. As the last passengers disembarked, Keanu lingered, flashing his charming smile. Remember, it's the little moments of courage that can lead to big changes. Keep sharing your story, Mr. Thompson. You never know who it might touch. With that, Keanu waved goodbye and stepped off the bus, leaving a lasting impact on everyone who had witnessed this powerful moment. Mr. Thompson looked around at the remaining passengers, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. The bus driver smiled at him. You did a good thing today. We all did. You reminded us that kindness is a choice, and we can always choose better. As the bus pulled away, Mr. Thompson felt a profound shift within himself. He was no longer just a man haunted by the past. He was a beacon of hope, ready to embrace the future. Together, they had transformed a moment of conflict into a lesson in compassion, and the journey was just beginning. As the bus rumbled down the streets of Los Angeles, Mr. Thompson felt a wave of relief wash over him. The events of the day replayed in his mind like a montage, each moment filled with courage, empathy, and unexpected connections. The weight of his past seemed lighter now, and for the first time in years, he felt seen. After the bus pulled away, Mr. Thompson and Lily decided to walk to a nearby cafe for some hot chocolate. They strolled through the bustling streets, the afternoon sun casting warm rays that illuminated their path. Lily held her grandfather's hand, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Grandpa, I can't believe you spoke up like that. You were so brave," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. Mr. Thompson chuckled, feeling the warmth of her pride. "I don't know about brave, but I felt something inside me, a need to stand up for what's right. It's easy to forget that we all have a voice." As they reached the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods filled the air, welcoming them inside. They found a cozy table by the window, and as they settled in, Mr. Thompson glanced outside, lost in thought. Lily noticed the change in him. "You're thinking about the bus, aren't you?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I am. It's strange how a single moment can shift everything. I didn't just stand up for myself. I stood up for every veteran who feels overlooked and disrespected." It felt good. Just then, the cafe door swung open, and in walked one of the teenagers from the bus, his head slightly bowed. Mr. Thompson's heart raced. He recognized the boy, the one who had mocked him earlier. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," the boy said hesitantly, approaching their table. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Lily squeezed her grandfather's hand, unsure of how he would react. But Mr. Thompson, feeling a sense of hope, gestured for him to sit. "Of course. What's on your mind?" The boy took a deep breath, visibly nervous. "I wanted to say I'm really sorry for how I acted. I didn't mean to hurt you or anyone else. I guess I just wanted to fit in with my friends, and I thought it would be funny." Mr. Thompson met his gaze, searching for sincerity. "It takes courage to apologize. I appreciate that. We all make mistakes, but it's what we do afterward that counts." Lily watched the exchange, amazed at her grandfather's ability to empathize with the boy. "I hope you learned something from today," she added. "It's never too late to change." The boy nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "I want to do better. I talked to some of my friends after we got off the bus, and we all agreed that we need to be more respectful. It's not cool to put people down." Mr. Thompson smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. "That's the spirit. Respect goes a long way. It's not just about what you say, but how you make others feel." As the boy stood to leave, he glanced back. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I hope I can make it up to you somehow." With that, he walked away, leaving Mr. Thompson and Lily to ponder the unexpected turn of events. "Wow, Grandpa," Lily said, her voice filled with admiration. "You really made an impact today." "I just shared my story," he replied softly. "Sometimes that's all it takes." As they enjoyed their hot chocolate, the conversation flowed easily, weaving in and out of memories and dreams for the future. Mr. Thompson realized that he wasn't just sharing his past. He was shaping a new narrative, one filled with hope and connection. Weeks went by, and the bus incident became a catalyst for change. Mr. Thompson started attending local veteran support groups, sharing his experiences and encouraging others to voice their stories. He found camaraderie with fellow veterans, bonding over shared struggles and triumphs. Lily joined him at some meetings, eager to learn and help. Together, they began organizing community events focused on promoting respect and kindness, bridging the gap between generations. Their efforts drew attention, leading to partnerships with schools and youth organizations that wanted to foster empathy among young people. One afternoon, as they prepared for a community event, Mr. Thompson received a message from Keanu Reeves. He expressed admiration for what they were doing and offered to attend their next gathering as a guest speaker. Mr. Thompson could hardly believe it, a real-life hero supporting their cause. The day of the event arrived, and the community center buzzed with excitement. Families, veterans, and young people filled the room, eager to hear Mr. Thompson and Keanu speak. As Mr. Thompson took the stage, he felt a surge of energy. "Today, we come together to celebrate kindness and the stories that unite us. Each of us has the power to make a difference. Let's choose to lift each other up." With Keanu by his side, they shared their experiences, emphasizing the importance of respect and understanding. The audience listened intently, and the air was thick with hope and possibility. As the event came to a close, Mr. Thompson felt a sense of fulfillment. He had not only found his voice again, but had also become a beacon for others. The journey from the bus ride to this moment was nothing short of transformative. igniting a fire within him to continue advocating for change. And so, as the crowd dispersed, he realized that while the world could be filled with cruelty, it was also brimming with compassion, waiting to be awakened. The journey of respect and kindness had just begun, and together, they would continue to create ripples of change that could touch lives far beyond their own. As the weeks turned into months, Mr. Thompson and Lily's initiative began to blossom into something far beyond their initial expectations. With Keanu Reeves as a prominent supporter, they managed to gather a diverse audience for their events: veterans, families, students, and community leaders all coming together to foster understanding and respect. The events evolved into workshops that focused on empathy, storytelling, and community building. They encouraged participants to share their experiences, bridging generational gaps and fostering connections that transcended age, background, and perspective. One particular workshop stood out in Mr. Thompson's memory. It was held at a local high school, where students had often struggled with issues of bullying and isolation. As he shared his story, he could see the impact of his words on the students' faces. Some nodded in understanding, while others looked visibly moved. "Every one of you has a story," he told them. "You might think you're alone, but the truth is, we all share similar struggles. You have the power to choose how you treat others. Make that choice count." After his speech, a shy girl raised her hand. "But what if we don't know how to change? It's hard to stand up when everyone around you is being mean." Mr. Thompson smiled, recognizing the challenge she faced. Change doesn't happen overnight. It starts small, with simple acts of kindness. Sometimes it takes one person to step up and encourage others to do the same. You can be that person. The conversation blossomed, and students began sharing their own stories, some about feeling bullied, others about witnessing cruelty and feeling powerless to stop it. Mr. Thompson encouraged open dialogue, creating a safe space where vulnerability was met with support. As the session wrapped up, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why he had stepped out of his comfort zone on that bus. This was the ripple effect of courage. The students left inspired, and he hoped they would carry that inspiration back to their communities. One day, while preparing for another workshop, Mr. Thompson received an unexpected call. It was from a producer interested in sharing his story on a larger platform. "We believe your experience could resonate with many people," the producer explained. "We'd love to feature you in a documentary about everyday heroes making a difference." Stunned, Mr. Thompson felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I'm just an old veteran trying to share my story," he replied. "I'm not a hero." "Exactly," the producer responded. "That's what makes you a hero. You're relatable. People need to see that real change comes from ordinary individuals stepping up. You have the chance to inspire many more." After discussing it with Lily, he decided to go for it. If sharing his journey could spark even more change, then it was worth it. Filming began, and he found himself revisiting painful memories while also celebrating moments of triumph. Each session reminded him of how far he had come since that fateful bus ride. As the documentary took shape, the community events continued to thrive. Students began initiating their own kindness projects at school. Mentoring programs, anti-bullying campaigns, and even art displays that highlighted the importance of respect and empathy. One afternoon, Mr. Thompson received a message from the boy who had first apologized to him on the bus. "I just wanted to say thank you again," the boy wrote. "I'm part of a group that's working on a mural for the school. We're dedicating it to kindness and respect, and I wanted to know if you'd come and see it when it's done." Overwhelmed with emotion, Mr. Thompson replied affirmatively. It was a tangible reminder of the change that was taking root. The bus ride that had once felt like a low point was now the starting line for a movement. On the day of the mural unveiling, the school gym buzzed with excitement. Students, teachers, and community members gathered to celebrate the project. Mr. Thompson stood alongside Lily, beaming with pride as the curtain was pulled back to reveal a stunning mural. It depicted scenes of kindness, people helping one another, sharing stories, and embracing their differences. The boy who had reached out to him stood at the front, his face flushed with pride. "This mural represents everything we've learned," he said, glancing at Mr. Thompson. "It's a reminder that we can all make a difference, no matter how small." Tears welled in Mr. Thompson's eyes as he spoke. "I am so proud of all of you. You are the changemakers. Remember that kindness is powerful. Keep spreading that message, and you'll change the world one person at a time." The crowd erupted into applause, and he felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. The mural was more than just paint on a wall. It was a symbol of hope, unity, and resilience. As they wrapped up the event, Lily tugged at his sleeve, her eyes sparkling. "Can you believe how far we've come, Grandpa? All from that one bus ride." He nodded, still in awe of the transformation. "It's incredible, Lily, but it's just the beginning. We have so much more to do." With a sense of purpose driving him forward, Mr. Thompson realized that the journey he had embarked upon was not just about sharing his story. It was about building a legacy of kindness that would outlive him. Together, they would continue to inspire, uplift, and spread the message of respect for generations to come. The months rolled on, and Mr. Thompson found himself immersed in a whirlwind of activities. The documentary was nearing completion, and the community initiatives had taken on a life of their own. Schools across the district began reaching out, eager to implement the kindness workshops that had sparked such enthusiasm. Mr. Thompson and Lily became a dynamic duo, traveling from one school to another, sharing stories and encouraging students to take a stand against bullying. Every time they stepped into a new classroom, they were met with eager faces, ready to learn about the power of empathy. One day, while preparing for a particularly large event at the local community center, Lily approached her grandfather, a serious expression on her face. "Grandpa, do you think people really change?" she asked, her voice quiet. Mr. Thompson paused, considering her question. "I believe they can. Change doesn't happen all at once, though. It starts with awareness, then takes commitment. We've seen it in those students, haven't we?" Lily nodded, remembering the way the mural had brought their school together. "I just hope it lasts. I don't want it to be just a moment. I want it to be a movement." With a reassuring smile, Mr. Thompson replied, "That's why we keep sharing our story. Each time we do, we plant a seed of change. It's up to them to nurture it." On the day of the community event, the center was packed. Families, teachers, and students filled the seats, buzzing with excitement. Mr. Thompson took the stage, feeling a familiar surge of nerves. He glanced over at Lily, who gave him a thumbs up, a gesture that steadied him. "Thank you all for being here today," he began. "Each one of you is a vital part of this movement. Today, we're not just celebrating kindness. We're pledging to make it a permanent part of our lives." As he spoke, he shared stories of individuals who had made significant impacts, including the students who had turned their feelings of isolation into kindness initiatives. The audience listened, captivated, and Mr. Thompson felt the weight of their attention. After his speech, Keanu Reeves took the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers, their excitement palpable. He shared his own experiences with kindness and how important it was to uplift one another, reinforcing the message Mr. Thompson had imparted. "Remember," Keanu said, "it's the small acts of kindness that can create the biggest ripples. Be the person who inspires others to be better. You all have that power." The energy in the room was electric, and as the event concluded, attendees began to brainstorm ideas for ongoing projects, mentoring programs, community service days, and kindness challenges that would engage students in positive actions. Over the next few months, those ideas took shape. Schools began implementing monthly kindness days, where students would participate in activities designed to promote empathy and respect. The movement continued to grow, and the documentary premiered to rave reviews, shining a light on their collective efforts. With each event, Mr. Thompson received messages from people who had been inspired by his story. Some shared how they had confronted bullying in their own lives, while others described how they had begun to mentor younger kids in their neighborhoods. One sunny afternoon, Mr. Thompson received an invitation from the mayor to attend a city council meeting. "We'd like to recognize you and Lily for your incredible work in the community," the mayor said. "Your efforts have sparked a kindness movement that's inspiring people of all ages." When the day arrived, Mr. Thompson stood before the city council, a mixture of pride and humility swelling in his chest. As the mayor presented him with a community service award, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude, not for the recognition, but for the impact they had all made together. "This award isn't just for me," he said, looking at the council members and then back at the crowd. "It belongs to everyone who has chosen to be a part of this movement. Every one of you has the power to make a difference. Keep spreading kindness, and let's make it a legacy that lasts." The applause that followed resonated deep within him, solidifying the understanding that their work was far from over. The seeds of change had been planted, but it was essential to continue nurturing them. As they left the meeting, Lily grabbed her grandfather's hand, her eyes shining. "You were amazing, Grandpa. Look at all the people you've inspired." He smiled down at her, his heart swelling with pride. "And it's only the beginning, Lily. Remember, the journey doesn't stop here. We'll keep going together." With that promise in mind, they spent the following months traveling across the state, sharing their message at schools and community centers, meeting with youth organizations, and inspiring others to take action. Each encounter reinforced their belief in the power of kindness and the change it could bring. Years later, as Mr. Thompson reflected on their journey, he realized how far they had come, from a tense moment on a bus to a thriving movement advocating for kindness. He had discovered not only his voice but a community that stood united, ready to challenge cruelty and embrace compassion. On a particularly reflective day, he and Lily sat together, surrounded by photographs of their journey, the mural unveiling, community events, and the faces of those they had touched along the way. "Do you think we've made a real difference?" Lily asked, her expression thoughtful. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her question. "I believe we have. And even if it's just one person who changes because of what we've done, that's enough." Kindness has a ripple effect, and it can reach places we might never see. As they sat together, Mr. Thompson knew that their legacy of kindness would continue to grow long after they were gone. They had ignited a flame that would burn brightly in the hearts of those they had inspired. And that, he realized, was the most profound impact of all, one that would resonate through generations to come.